I just gotta give it a second, and then we're gonna go live. And we'll probably give it a 1 minute to everybody logs in because it takes usually about a minute or so for everyone. So we won't really get started. Okay, so I'm gonna go live right now. All right, we are live, everyone. Welcome. Okay, it's notifying all our friends and our families and all our fans. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I'll give everyone a second to join us. We'll take it from there. We have the incredible Aspen and John joining us today from Points to Possibilities. I'm really excited because today we're going to talk a little about something that I don't think always gets a chance to really highlight, which is things that really happen to everyday people, which is flights get delayed, flights gets canceled. And the question always is, what do we do? What do we do when those things happen? And before we get too deep into it, I want to introduce Aspen and John. Can you folks give a chance to kind of introduce yourself to my audience so that they know a little bit about where you folks based out of, how long you've been doing this, and then a little bit about your account?
Yeah, good start.
Okay, yeah, so I'm John.
Aspen, hey.
We are based in Durham, North Carolina. We've been dabbling in points and miles for probably 8 years. Whenever we used to be long distance, I was in DC, she was in California. So, go back and forth every month. You want to figure out ways to cut down on cost. But we've started our account about a year ago, kind of documenting some of our travel experiences and providing some insight to probably help others, hopefully.
So during that long distance relationship, Aspen, you're from California. Are you from Southern California or Northern California?
I lived there for a couple years after graduation. And so I was in Long Beach, and yeah, he was in DC. So that was a bit of a commute. So yeah, points miles definitely helped out. That's how we got our start for sure.
Aspen, when my father first came to this country, he based himself out of Long Beach as well. So cool. Long Beach has a special. My mom was in Hollywood and my dad was in Long Beach, and he would take her home.
That's a long distance.
Yeah, that's a long distance.
That's my dad. My dad would tell her, "Oh, don't take the bus. I'll take you home." So my dad would
That's a long distance relationship.
Yeah, that is. So when you decided to learn points miles, it's because you want to reduce some of that cost as you're coming back and forth. Did you have a particular airline you like flying, John? Was it is it American? Was it Delta, United? Or were you all over the place? Did it matter?
It started with American. So in college, I was flying a lot, and I was based out of Pittsburgh, which started flying U.S. Airways, and then American Airlines kind of bought them out in that merger. So I had an American Airlines credit card my last year of college, I think. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with American Airlines.
Okay. And I mean, U.S. Airways, you're bringing it back. I mean, that's at least 10 years ago. The merger happened 10 years back. So you've been flying for a while then.
I didn't start flying until college, but yeah.
Did you ever imagine that points was an option at the time, or were you primarily just booking cash tickets and then earning miles from flying?
At the time, so we both met in a student organization, and we served on board. So they were buying the cash tickets for us. Okay. So it was sort of like business travel, but it was a nonprofit. We weren't getting paid for anything, and so they paid for our flights. But so that was where it started.
Also, we didn't know what we were doing either. We would just get whatever flight made sense time-wise. We weren't really strategic about, let's stick with one airline versus the other. But then now we know better.
You know what? A lot of people don't realize, even though someone buys a ticket for you, you can still earn miles. The person flying still earns miles. Yes. I see a lot of people fly that way, like describing that your description, and they don't think they can earn miles because they didn't pay for it. And I always say to people, if you pay for the ticket, you earn miles, and the person flying earn miles, you can double dip. So even if you didn't book the flight, you didn't pay for it, but you're sitting on that cash ticket, you can open a frequent flyer account and earn miles that way as well,
Yeah, exactly. And fortunately, we had people that went through the student organization before us, and they were like, hey, you need to open up your frequent flyer account. But you were also flying like as a child, and so your parents were on you about that.
Yeah.
Did you have a particular airline that you earned more points with, Aspen?
Also bringing it back, my parents were big Continental people, and so United originally, and then whatever I could find that's the cheapest, fastest, best time.
Whenever you start paying,
yeah, once I started paying for my own, but originally United was my go-to.
All right. So I wanted the audience to know a little bit about points to possibilities. You named it points to possibilities. So from your perspective, what does that mean to you? What is flights and points? How has that kind of changed your attitude, or has it when it comes to travel?
I mean, I think it comes down to points just open up things that we didn't know were possible before. And it's really opened up new possibilities for us to explore the world, have new experiences that we otherwise would probably wouldn't be able to afford. So, I mean, that's really kind of at the heart of it.
Yeah. And then not only for us too, but like our friends and family, being able to put like your dad on a plane to come visit us for graduation, being able to put like my aunt and my friends on their first business class flight ever, like those kind of exciting stories keep us going. And so it's cool to see other people also like buying into this opportunity of like what you can actually get with points.
I think that's the understated right there, by the way. Being able to use your points for others has probably been a huge game changer for me. I've been able to fly my mom first time ever, in her life, in business class, or just flying her anywhere she wants to go, and not have to worry that it's too expensive. When the time comes down to it, you actually could do it if need be. And I think those are things that I think new people who are to points and miles. Do you feel like the account that you folks opened up, are they geared toward more of a person who's like a beginner, or maybe they've already gotten a few cards and maybe they're trying to get to the next level? Who do you feel like your account is kind of geared toward?
Kind of. So we haven't really figured that out yet. It's still a work in progress. And so right now we're kind of gearing it to like everybody. Like we want to have people who haven't actually opened a credit card, like a travel credit card yet, like figure out which ones are the best for them and why. But then also we want to have people who are really good at this, who do this often, give them more tools and give them more tips on what they can do better in the future.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because you folks are talking about something that I feel not too many people are talking about, but it happens to almost every one of us eventually, which is we'll have a flight booked. Maybe there's a connecting flight, maybe even an international, a positioning flight. Everyone is getting to the main city to get on that nice lie flat seat. And things happen, the weather, sometimes a mechanical delay. Maybe the flight doesn't get in time. A whole host. The crew times out because they can't work overtime. All these things can happen. And when those things happen, what do we do? And I saw your stories and I said to myself, wow, this is really good, because this applies not just for new people, but this applies to the people who've been flying all the time too. See, this is the thing. I've been a business traveler, so I'm on a plane regularly, so I know these things happen. If you only fly infrequently, you can fly maybe 3 years and never had a flight delayed. And when they happen, you're like, oh my God, I've never had this happen. What am I going to do now? I say that because I said what you are sharing in your stories, I feel like is really, really important. I don't think enough people hear about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened recently in your recent flight, and tell us where you're heading to?
Yeah. So like you said, if you travel with any bit of frequency, something's going to go wrong. It's inevitable. So yeah, we've had a few things over the past 5 or so years where we've had claims. Our most recent one, we were going to Peru. It was Aspen's, kind of like our mutual friend. It was my friend first, Aspen Stoller. And then,
she has good taste.
so we gave Aspen a friend. We were going to celebrate her birthday in Peru. But before that, we had a wedding in Grafton, Vermont, which is not near a major airport.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, the closest
Yeah.
airport is an hour away, and only Cape Air flies into there.
Wow.
In the little 9-seater planes. But the short of it is we flew from Durham to Vermont, and then Vermont, we were going to Miami, and that was our positioning flight. We were actually flying from Boston to Miami because we were going to catch a LATAM flight down to Peru. And first there was weather delays in Boston. Pretty much every flight was delayed. And then the crew timed out. So you mentioned two different things happened. We had two of them happen for the same delay. So it ended up being like 7 hours between the two things. And so we missed our flight in Miami. We had to get hotels, had to rebook our Miami flight. Yeah.
Then did you book this with mileage or was this a cash ticket?
So there were 3 separate tickets because it was a little complicated, and we wanted to prioritize our flight from Miami to Lima, and so that one we booked with miles, and then 2 from Boston to Miami we booked with cash, right?
Yeah,
and then
cash, right.
Same with from Peru to Cusco
Or Lima.
Yeah,
Peru.
sorry, yeah, Lima to Cusco with cash.
Yeah, 3 separate tickets.
Yeah.
So
that was fun rescheduling all of that.
You had a cash ticket, then the big long haul points ticket, and then the cash ticket to get you over to your. It sounds like you're getting to Cusco. So from that perspective, when you had that first flight get delayed, what did you do? Did you try to rebook, or were you able to get the airline, the operating airline, rebook you, or what happened then?
We tried a lot of things. So we were like, okay, how can we still get to Miami? That was our first thought. Unfortunately, we booked the last flight from Boston to Miami. So that was mistake number 1.
Let's stop for a second, because that's a big one right there. When you book the last flight of the day, there's nothing else, right? Even on another airline. So now you have to overnight. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically we don't do that. We try to at least like the second to last flight of the night. So we always have like a one backup. But then we had like the wedding, absolutely gorgeous. Totally recommend going to Grafton, Vermont, by the way. But there was a brunch the following morning, and so we wanted to be there for brunch, say goodbye, and just be there for that. And then we had to go from there and drive to Boston, and so that was like a 3-hour drive. And so like timing wise, there were no earlier flights that we could have gotten on that let us do all of that. So yeah.
So we did
okay, that makes sense. So then when you couldn't and you had to overnight, did the airline give you anything, or did you have to get in line and get it? Was it difficult?
So this is what we debated. So our American Airlines ticket ended on the Boston to Miami segment. So we debated, do we have them rebook us for the next morning and then get the hotel through them in Boston? Yeah. But we were like, let's just get to Miami. But before we made that decision, we had to reschedule our Miami to Lima flight.
Okay, the big long haul one.
Yeah.
You were gonna make it. You weren't gonna make it.
No, not even close.
Okay. So let's talk about the first leg. So now that you know that the first leg, and I'm taking us through the process because I want people to understand, like, what do they do when those things happen? And where did you go? Did you go to customer service? Did you pick up the phone? Did you go to the lounge? Like, how did you end up getting all those things taken care of?
So fortunately, we were in a lounge, and it made it a little bit easier. It was a little quieter if we had to make phone calls. And
we kept getting delayed, like pushed back like an hour at a time, and so it wasn't all at once, and so we kept going back and forth from to the gate to the lounge, and so they saw us quite a bit.
Yeah, but we looked at, okay, the main one we wanted to prioritize was that long haul and lie flat. Mm-hmm. So we said, let's focus on changing that. So we looked at, what if we went out of JFK? Could we get the operating airline to change it to JFK? There was 1 seat available, not 2. So that didn't work. And we looked at Atlanta, same thing. And then, so the next thing we were like, okay, we got to reschedule the flight for tomorrow. So we rescheduled the Tom flight for the next day.
Okay.
And we booked it through British Airways before the deval. Okay. But so we were able to change it in the app. There was a $65 change fee per person. So
On
we were
British
like, we changed it directly into Latam app
Okay.
because at that point they had handed the flight over.
Okay.
We did call British Airways to see if we could switch it, but then like they would have needed to see the award availability, and they didn't see the award availability. So we just paid the $65 per person. We said we'll figure it out with insurance later.
Okay. So you moved that long haul flight to the next day so that you could be able to find a way. So how did you get to Miami still?
We waited the flight out for 7 hours. It took off. We landed like 2:30, 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Also, your original flight eventually did take off. It wasn't canceled, delayed.
No, delayed
for 7 hours.
Yeah.
So we had to decide, like, do we want to get stuck in Boston or do we want to get stuck in Miami? And like maybe I would say maybe a third of the flight ended up getting like changed to their Boston to Miami flight for the next morning. But we were kind of nervous about that because like we still need to get to Lima. And so I'd rather get one flight, one city closer, one leg closer. And then like, what if anything happened the next day and there were still more weather issues or crew issues? It just felt more reasonable to wait 7 hours, even though like in hindsight, I don't know, but it worked out.
And this is leaving from Vermont, right?
Well, Boston. Yeah.
From Boston.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you eventually got Boston to Miami somehow. the first flight. So you got there, you moved the flight over. So you were able to get the same flight just the following day on that second leg?
We booked. So Latam had 3 flights going out.
Okay.
And we said, we're going to book the first one.
Okay.
So we're not going to get on that last leg just in case something happens again.
It's actually funny. The next flight out that left before our first flight out. So because we were like, oh, we're not going to do the second flight for sure because we need a backup. And then that backup actually ended up leaving before our original flight for Latam.
It happens. You got.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to be protected so that you can be standby on the other? Like, did you have? By the way, carry on or check in? What are you doing? What's your situation with that? Bags.
This trip was carry on, fortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you try getting on the second flight as a standby, or you could put yourself on? Have you tried that before?
So we tried to do it with Latam. For some reason, it actually showed us booked on both flights.
Oh, okay.
But when we talked to them at the Miami airport, they're like, "No, you're not booked on this second flight. You're not standby." But we did originally show 2 different flights in our app, which was weird.
Okay, let's just stop for here for a second. I think there's a lot that we got to unpack for a second right now because I think there's a lot going on. What lesson at that point did you learn? Like, what lesson can you give advice to somebody who's like, I'm in this situation too? If this happened again, what would you have done? Would you have done anything differently? Or would you have done the same thing that you did on your plan, Aspen or John? Like, if you run across this again, what would you do?
That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got 7 hours later, right? But you still got there, didn't you?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, could there have been an alternate version of this that would have been better than what happened? I guess is my.
I mean, we could have rebooked for the next morning, and then maybe from Boston to Miami, and then maybe gotten to sleep a little bit earlier. Have AA get us the hotel because eventually the delay ended up being because of crew availability after the initial weather delay. So we could have had them get the hotel for us in Boston. That might have been the only thing we would have done differently.
Either the scenarios fine for you? I mean, I guess my question sounded like you could have gone either way. It didn't matter then.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we asked because we were just curious. We asked like our viewers what they would have done. Actually, majority, like maybe like 60%, said that they would have stayed in Boston instead of stayed in Miami. So it's just kind of like personal preference, personal choice. For us, it was like a really short trip in Peru already, and we were there for like a friend's birthday, and so we wanted to make sure that we like got closer or making progress. It was like more of like an emotional feeling than like an actual logical feeling, but the trip is already condensed by a day, And so we wanted to like at least try and feel like we're making progress and get there. So
I agree. I mean, there's always things can still go wrong even on the next flight. It happened to my student this week on during Labor Day. I mean, they had the first flight out was canceled to Miami because there was a 4-hour delay, but the plane was 4 hours delayed, so they weren't going to make their connecting. So that was done. So then they waited overnight, and then the overnight one, that flight got messed up as well, and they got another delay, and it happens on the second time. So, and I was like, don't fly out of EWR. You're flying American again. You better be flying on United because there's not redundancy of flights. They may not have that many flights. That's part of the challenge too when you're flying out. So, things to look at. I said, I told my student, I said, next time you're going to do an important trip like this, I know EWR is close to your home. You're in New Jersey, but make the trek to JFK. Make the trek to LaGuardia. You would have had more options coming out of there than you would have. So I think that's the one lesson. Look at the airport you're flying out of, because I think that's the question right now is, I think you did the right thing to go Miami. I don't think flying out of Boston wasn't going to help you get in there any closer. It just delayed even more, a delay that was unexpected. So from my perspective, I would have done the same thing. This is an unusual live. I don't usually kind of dissect these kind of trips, but I think these are things that are important because we all going to go through this one day. We're all going to have a delay one time, and we're all going to go. So let's talk about this. Did you book the trip with a credit card that had some kind of trip or travel protection?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We use the AMEX Platinum. And so typically we always buy flights through AMEX Platinum just because you get better bang for your buck. You get more like what 5% back. Yeah. And so we typically buy all flights with that card. And so when we saw the writing on the wall, we're like, okay, we're delayed. And then delayed another hour, then another hour, then another hour. We're like, okay, well, let's make sure that all the purchases that we make moving forward because of this cancellation, because of the delay, make sure we use the Amex Platinum. So, for example, our Ubers, when we actually did make it to Miami, we used Amex Platinum, which we never do because like you can use other cards that are more valuable for Ubers, but then to make sure that it was all covered in our insurance, like our soon-to-be insurance claim, we make sure to use the Amex Platinum for like the hotel, Ubers. I think those are our main.
Yeah, hotels and Ubers.
Yeah.
Did you incur a lot of costs for this delay? I know you said you just kind of stayed over.
Oh.
Oh, thank you. Hear us?
Yeah. Are you able to hear us, Ben?
Okay, there you go.
Back.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. You too.
All right.
Can you repeat what you just said?
Sorry about
Yes.
that. Okay.
No worries.
We should be good. I'll just give a second, everybody get back. Okay, I think we're good. Let's go. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's continue again. Go for it. Aspen, you were saying that. So I guess my question was, did you folks have money expenses that incurred that you could put a claim for? What are some of those things?
Yeah, we had about $700, just shy of $700 of expenses. So we had Ubers, like to and from the Miami airport to our hotel in Miami. So we had the hotel in Miami. But because we rescheduled Miami to Lima, we also had to reschedule Lima to Cusco. So we had to have a hotel in Lima as well. So we had 2 hotel nights.
Then the rescheduling fees.
Round trip Ubers and then the rescheduling fees.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you're delayed 7 hours or overnight, right? And that's kind of a magic number because most of these higher end policies, some of the mid-tier policies, a lot of policies out there say you have to delay 12 hours or overnight. But your policy says how much? What does yours say?
For the Platinum card from American Express, it was 6 hours or overnight.
So I hate 5.5 hour delays. I love 6.
Yeah, it's right by the cutoff.
Like, I just missed it, But 6 is like, okay, where's my money?
Yeah, exactly.
So how was the process of making the claim? Was it difficult? And what are the paperwork that people need to know that they need to collect? That if you did this again, you would have maybe done this differently. Maybe explain on that part.
Yeah. So every insurance provider and like benefit administrator is going to be a little bit different. Um, so like in the past, we did a claim through Citi back when the Advantage Platinum Select card used to have the trip insurance. We've done one through Chase for a hotel, and now we've done one through AMEX. So they've all been a little bit different, but the kind of documentation is similar. So they have their own individual forms that they'll send you after we call them. And then we had to have like the original receipts showing that we used the card that's covered. So in this case, the Amex Platinum for all the flights, the receipts for the expenses, and like a justification for the delay or interruption.
Proof of delay, right?
Yeah, that was the trickiest part.
Yeah, let's talk about proof of delay. What did they want?
So basically, they wanted a letter from American saying that, hey, we were delayed, and this is because of weather or whatever other reasons. But the original letter they got from American that we got from them and sent to them, it said that the reason was crew delay, like crew availability. So we got a response back from AMEX saying, hey, we don't cover this. Like, this is not part of our insurance coverage. And we're like, oh, no. Actually, it was definitely because of weather. Like, the original issue was weather. Yeah. And then because of that, the crew timed out. And so we had to go back and forth like quite a few times to make sure that was the right language in the letter. So then it can be approved. But we were just very focused on getting that language correct so they can give us our money back.
Uh-oh. Did you happen to catch that, or did it freeze?
We'll be back. There we go. I'm so sorry. Let's do. Can we do that part? I know where we left off. It was a part where he said we had to get the correct language. I'm so sorry about that, Aspen John.
No,
you had to do that part where you said you had to get the correct language because it said crew delay, but now the insurance company came back and said no, they're not going to accept that's not a covered loss. Mm-hmm. What did you do you didn't give up right then and there? Like most people would have just said no, okay, we're just going to move on. But you didn't.
We're very stubborn.
Yeah, it was a matter of principle at this point. Like we weren't about to lose that almost $700 that we spent.
Because you had a legitimate reason. It wasn't like this is a legit reason, but you felt like maybe they just gave you the wrong reason, to submit, right? So what did you do what did you do at that point to overcome it?
So we just went back and forth. We reached out to American Airlines, explained the situation again, and then they fixed it, but then they had the wrong flight information, and so it was kind of like a mess. And so we were just like persistent, like, no, okay, change this to this, change this to this, like very specific about what needs to be fixed. And so after maybe like 3 or 4 times back and forth, they finally got the right letter that we sent to Amex for our insurance claim.
Did you write to like customer service, or was it customer relations, or did you anyone in particular?
So like the legacy, at least the legacy U.S. carriers all have that. There's like a form on their website for trip delay verification. Mm-hmm. So that's where we have to put the initial inquiry in there, and then once they respond by email. We just respond to the email that they send us.
That's awesome. Okay. So now that you got that corrected, you submitted again.
Yes.
How long are we into this process now? Because sometimes it can take a while. So I'm just wondering how far into this process did it take?
So
like 2 weeks, 3 weeks in?
So we didn't start submitting the claim until like June 10th-ish. We waited till we got back from our trip. Okay. So June 10th, the June 19th, they said it wasn't covered. And then we went back and forth with AA, and that took probably somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then once we resubmitted, it took about 2 weeks for them to say, hey, your check's in the mail.
Okay. So about maybe almost 2 months that were on there then.
Yeah, almost 2 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I just want people to know what the real, like, what is the real number? What does it look like? And I'd love to hear, just kind of experience on it when there is some challenge. So you got that taken care of. I'm sorry. Go ahead, ask.
I was gonna say, earlier you asked like what we would do differently if we had to do it over again. We would definitely submit the request for American, like right as soon as like we got delayed. So that would have been our first move, because then we could have gotten that like ideally before we got back from vacation and started this process a little sooner. That would have saved us like a week or so of waiting. And so that would be something we would have done in the future.
How did they give you back that reimbursement? Was it a check? Was it a credit card credit? Like, how did they give it back to you?
Yeah, so this one was a check. The two previous claims we've done were, so back when Citi still had the trip insurance with the Advantage card, that one was a statement credit, and then Chase was a statement credit as well. But yeah, this one was a check.
What, now that you went through that experience with Amex, and I know you said you also had that experience with other banks, can you rank them, like from an experience standpoint? Was one better than the other? Did you like the other banks? Did you like one particular process better than the other, or they were all about the same?
I don't know. I feel like there's a recency bias, right? Like the other ones were years ago. I feel like the easiest one was probably Chase, honestly. But it was just a hotel night that we had to get reimbursed. It was two hotel nights. I think our Amex claim was more complicated to begin with, so it just took more time.
Yeah, because sometimes the thing is that sometimes people say, well, so and so bank is so easy to deal with. I rather just, and I go, well, you've had both experiences. Would you have picked a credit card here? If you had 3 credit cards that all offer insurance and you've gone through all of them now, would you say, I'm going to pick this credit card to use because their insurance process is so much better, easier, faster? Is it any of those situations, or does that sway your decision on which credit card to use moving forward?
I don't think it sways our decision. I mean, we're still gonna. The only thing it might change is like, so for Amex in particular is the round trip language in there. But it doesn't have to be a traditional round trip ticket. It can be made up of a whole bunch of different segments, including mileage tickets, as long as you pay the taxes with your Amex. So the only way I might do something different is if I'm just like, hey, I'm randomly taking a one-way trip and I don't know what the return looks like and I'm leaving tomorrow. Then I might use like Chase, because that one doesn't have that round trip restriction.
All right. That's awesome. So I wanted, before we wrap up, I mean, we obviously want to talk about American. We'd already kind of teased that out a little bit, that there were some sweet spots and some things. Can tell us a little bit about what's your relationship or with American Airlines. Are you flying them a lot? Do you have status with them? Are you earning a lot of their points? Give us a little background on that.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag with us. Aspen's a little bit more of a Delta girly, even after she grew up United and Continental. And then, but she has platinum status with American, and then I have platinum pro with American.
How did that happen? Did you guys do it the traditional way and just earn a bunch of points? Or did you get a challenge? How did one have higher stats than the other?
So she'll tend to fly more with like Delta through work. So she doesn't fly American as much. When I take personal trips, I only stick to American. So that's how it ends up.
Okay. And are you earning points from primarily flying?
Primarily, if we're near like the next threshold, or like now the loyalty point choice rewards, we might throw in like a random shopping purchase, one that we already have planned, not spending extra money for status. But yeah, for the most part, flying.
Has status been helpful for you?
Sorry, you were cutting out a little bit there.
I was just asking, how long have you had American airline status? Is this your first year?
5, 6 years, maybe.
Oh, 5, 6 years. Would you recommend for someone who's like, I'm not an American flyer right now? What's kept you continuing to renew it year after year? What perks is it, or does it matter? Do you feel like there's a difference?
I feel like it's the starting from scratch elsewhere that I don't want to do.
Okay.
Before we moved to Durham, we've been in Durham about 3 years. Most of the places we'd fly were American hubs, so they were more, there were more flight options. So it was like, okay, we're going to stick with American because of this. It was strategic in that sense. Now in Durham, it doesn't really matter unless we're flying directly to an American hub, like if we're going to Philly or if we're going to Dallas.
Do you would you say that it's been helpful to have status versus, let's say, if you didn't have status? Like how have you enjoyed American Airlines status the most? What benefit of being a Platinum Pro has been beneficial that you can maybe share with someone who doesn't have it?
Flying domestically, main cabin extra.
Okay.
Flying domestically, main cabin extra.
Those 3 inches make a difference.
Yeah, or if you get, one of my favorite seats, we're in a small airport, so we'll often fly like the E-175s.
Yeah.
So if you're getting row 8 right there, they have a whole bunch more extra leg room. So love those.
I mean, I actually think if you're flying an E-175 regional jet, you have a high chance of getting upgraded as a Platinum Pro. I mean, You're probably sitting up front on the A row anyway, sitting by yourself in your throne seat, so right.
Yeah.
I love those. That's low key to me. One of the best domestic seats out there is an Embraer 175 on a regional jet, even though there's no IFE, there's no, entertainment system, but it's comfortable, thick seats. You're sitting by yourself. You got a window seat. You have an aisle seat.
Yeah.
You got both. It's like, it's the best. So let's talk about AA. Are there any particular sweet spots that you really enjoy that you've been using that will that you think it's going to help people if they earn AA miles?
I think for us, I mean, AA's, at least for now, I'm hoping it sticks around for a little bit longer, is they still have a fixed award chart for One World partners. So it really helps out. We really so the one we used this year was Japan and Korea.
Okay.
Are both in Asia. I always get them mixed up if it's 1 or 2. I think it's Asia 1. Yeah. It's in the Asia 1 region, and it's only 60,000 in business and 80,000 in first. So we really like that spot because it's one of the cheapest ways to get to Japan and Korea.
That's awesome. So when you're looking at a redemption, do you usually look at it from where I'm going and how I'm going to use it? Or do you go, okay, I have all these points, I want to go somewhere with it? Do you usually look at the destination first and look at which points I should go use? Or do you go, I'm going here and therefore I'm going to use these points? How do you usually decide? Is it destination or you look at your mileage balance first?
I think it's shifted. We're looking at each other because it's definitely shifted over the years. I feel like more recently, maybe the last year or two, it's like if there's a good deal, a good redemption deal, a good points deal, then John usually finds it first, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go to Australia? Do you want to go to Korea? Like, hey, do you want to go to?" And so it's just kind of like the flight deal comes first, and then we start planning around. Okay, cool. If we're going to Japan, then let's go to Korea as well, and so we kind of plan around the deal instead.
Yeah,
you let the flight deal decide for you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And then we have it might be a problem. We have a problem where if we're saying, hey, we fly to Japan, Korea's right there, we might as well go to both.
Might as well.
So we're that type of traveler. We're not vacationers.
Yeah, so they're kind of exhausting trips, but totally worth it.
Can I ask you, Aspen? I know there's a big community nowadays of like, African American community flying, and I think this is one that we don't really get to hear too much about in Points and Miles. I know Nicole, who's watching right now, she's representing a group out there in Jamaica that is, they don't get to hear about some of this thing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you feel like you've learned in Points and Miles and what you want to share maybe with your community? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think just going back to the possibilities are just endless. Like there's so many places that you can go. Actually, we took my parents to like this amazing trip in the Middle East, all based on points. We flew Etihad's like first class, and then also business class, and we kind of switched on the way back. But that's something that they didn't think about originally. Like just being able to fly like that, like personally versus like with work travel, and to like get our own flights and bounce around. So kind of like we were just talking about how we find the deals first and then plan travel around it. We went to Dublin first, and then we went to London because the main deal was from London to Abu Dhabi. And so like planning that trip around that leg and then going like while we're there, like might as well go to Qatar. And then so like just kind of being able to bounce around is just so freeing. And then there's just so many possibilities out there that like you just gotta know that they're out there in the first place.
Are you the kind of traveler that plans the outbound and doesn't plan the return trip?
Depends who you're asking. So my strategy personally, is I pretend I have a return flight. We don't most of the time, but John figures that part out because my stress level would just go through the roof if I knew we did not have a return flight for most of our trips. So that's kind of how we deal with that.
And for those who are not familiar, why we're talking about this is because a lot of times you'll find really good availability within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if your trip is 2 weeks, that means you're looking for your return trip while you're on your vacation already, while you're at your destination already. So that's a little bit, I know it can be stressful for new people running Points Miles, but as you get more adept at this, it's something that it's definitely manageable. So a lot of people do one ways that way. I want to maybe bring up, Brian brought up something that we talked about a little bit earlier. He said he's actually really surprised that Amex would cover your second hotel, not the first hotel, but that second hotel, considering it was kind of a voluntary change. Although, you guys kind of got forced to because the flights got pushed, but how did you manage that one? Now it sounds really interesting.
It's a good point. I don't know. I don't think this was necessary, but we were not playing with our money. So we put together like a summary letter kind of explaining what happened that we submitted with our claim. And we said, basically, because the flight from Boston to Miami was delayed, we had to reschedule Miami to Lima. So because we had to reschedule that one, we were going to miss Lima to Cusco, which means we had to reschedule Lima to Cusco to make it to our destination. So I think explaining that was helpful.
Now, most of the time, they're going to refund you for like non-refundable. Was it one of these non-refundable situations? They didn't push back and say, well, could you not just canceled it and then not be charged? Like, did you have to show them that you incurred some kind of charge? Did they not push you for that? I'm just curious.
No, they didn't push us for anything other than the updated verification letter of the delay. We submitted, so we basically said like we listed out this was the change fee for this segment. This one didn't have change fee, but they required us to pay the difference in fare. So they just lumped those two change fees together and was like, okay, cool. There were no questions. We just had to show like we actually paid for it.
So Brian, Brian, by the way, is like a consultant for airlines and things like that. And Brian flies all the time. The dude has like status with like 10 airlines concurrently at the same time. Anyway, if you see Brian in the chat, here's the thing. I think there's something to be learned on this, even for some of us expert, is if you find the right adjuster who buys your story, they can say, okay, this is he's saying X happened, so that's why Y had to happen, so Z happened. I get where you're coming from. You're going, it created a whole domino effect, and so these are all my extra costs that I wasn't expecting to pay because of this, and therefore I want to be reimbursed for that. So okay, it's a really good point. It's a really, really good point.
And then with that too, like when we submitted our insurance, like we go over the top. We're very, very extra with it. Like we have little tables, we have an appendix, and like label the receipt appendix to like where this is actually happening in the story. Like we like very thoroughly explain why things are happening. Because I mean, technically we probably could have just slept in the airport, you know, and not got a hotel at all. But I'm like, let's try and get some good sleep. We only have 2 hours, so make it worth it. And so we're very explicit in the in our claim, and that also probably helps just make their lives a little easier to follow the story. And so they make our lives easier by giving us the claim.
And then one thing I'll add is this might have also helped. I don't know because they don't tell us. In that letter, we said this is what we tried to do to minimize costs. So we talked, like we said, hey, these were the alternatives we considered. They were not possible because of this. We booked a hotel where we had status, so we didn't have to pay for breakfast. Like, so we said
ate food at the lounge, and so we didn't actually have any lounge expenses at all.
Yeah.
Like food expenses at all.
So you weren't trying to take advantage of them in a sense. So like, look, I'm trying to mitigate the losses that you guys are going to incur. I tried all these things already. These were all the things I tried, and none of these worked. This is the best option. And just like listening to your story and how you guys document it, I can see that. You know what I'm thinking right now? Anytime I have a claim, I'm going to have Aspen and John file a claim. I'll pay you guys to file the claim for me, and you guys can have a good service. And that could be your great business model.
It could be. It's a little stressful to do all documentation, but yeah, it could be an option.
Here's the thing. I already know. Because I've done it. I've had to tape receipts. I had to write letters. We didn't even have ChatGPT back in the day. So I think this is fantastic. All right, folks. Well, I think this has been a great session. If you folks are not following Points of Possibility, I really think you guys should go watch and what they do. They have a fantastic account. Give us an idea. By the way, how can they find you guys? I already something now. It's at Points to Possibility. That all written out. That'll be where you guys can be able to find it. And I'll post them again, but you guys can see them in the story. I think what Aspen and John are doing on their account, although it's a brand new, it's kind of a new account, but I knew right away when I saw it, I'm like, these folks know what they're doing. They've been flying. I mean, he's been for years with Aspen. She talked about Continental, which is I almost work in Northwest or something. Like, yeah, and they went on strike, so that never ended up happening. But I think there's a lot of institutional knowledge that folks who've been flying for a long time can really bring to the table. That maybe new people sometimes they don't really get that kind of context on it. And I love these kind of topics. You know, like I've been, in insurance business for like 30 plus years. And I'm new to travel insurance, but I've been selling it now for probably the last 3 years. And I can just tell you this, every policy is different. Every policy is different. And I'm scratching my head sometimes like, and what underwriter came up with this idea? So I find it really interesting. I actually recently on my last call, I told somebody, send me your cruise policy. I want to read it. Your cruise travel policy. I want to go read this thing. So that's what I like to do. So I appreciate you guys bringing this to light. I think hopefully everybody who watches this or watches this later will get a better understanding of what they need to do to file. So you got to get the documentation. So that means get the receipts, get the original method of payment, how you finally get there. And then probably more important, as you said, other than that, is to get the documentation there of what's the cause of the delay. And if you don't get the answer that you need, go back again and work it with them until you get the right answer that you're looking for. Because what does it matter to American Airlines in the end anyway? There's not money out of their pocket. Get the answer I need, right? I mean, I think that's the idea of what we need to say. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, we just wanted to thank you for having us. You've been a big supporter since I met you at Travel Summit. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I love highlights.
An article.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, speaking of travel insurance, looking forward to your upcoming article.
Thank you. Yes, it's on U.S. News World Report. I'll probably share it on the IG really soon. But I want to thank you guys for coming. Everyone, go ahead and follow Aspen and John on Points to Possibilities. You guys are not going to regret it. They're a fantastic account. They have great details here that definitely help you as you guys want to improve your travel more and travel better. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ben.
Okay, I ended the live. You guys did a good job.
Great job. That was awesome.
Sorry for the technical stuff, but in the end, I think it was great. I thought it was great. I can just tell you this: the people who were on this call were, listen to other folks. Like, look, I even got Nicole. Nicole came to come listen. You know who Nicole is, right? Nicole.
Yeah.
Have you talked to her before, Aspen? Are you friends with her?
Friends, not yet officially. I've met her in person. John's been able to meet her in person. But like we've communicated a bunch over Instagram, and so like definitely want to meet her sometime soon.
Yeah, you'll get into that group of folks that meet up and all that kind of stuff. So that'll happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Good. Aspen, John, are you going to be heading to any conferences or anything? You're going to meet up with anyone soon, or it's conference season, by the way, September, October, November. Conference season. So if you're going to meet up, it's going to be this time of the year.
Yeah, we have conflicts with pretty much all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even Zorkfest in November. I'm speaking it. I'm actually organizing Zorkfest in November 1st to 3rd. I invited Julia from GeoBreeze to come speak with me. So we're going to do an AMA. We're going to have people because there's a gambling side and then there's us and then we're going to do it together. So we're going to pull the gambling together. So everyone walks in they're going to be a deck of cards. You're going to get to write your question. And
cool.
We're going to get all the cards and we're going to pull random cards and have to answer whatever they ask us. So it could be airline, credit card, hotel, being a content creator, whatever. Like we're going to have so we're going to do an AMA kind of fun thing, and then we'll do then we're going to do what we call in the back room, where we're going to do a game show on the second day, where we have and then I'm going to get to interview Gary Leff. I'm so excited about that. I'm going to get and then I'm speaking at Chicago seminar in September, and then I'm going to be talking about how to network at a conference. So we're going to talk about that, and then I'll be at Loyalty Summit in that same week. I still have to buy a ticket. I'll be at CardCon, which is really more for content creators. So there's some conferences that are probably geared toward a points enthusiast, and then there's some that I'm going to that are focused more for like the content creator. If you're like a writer, a blogger, it's good. So I'm going to CardCon in San Antonio to so over there they're going to have people like from Chase, from Frontier, from Aeroplan, so we'll get to meet some of the big wigs there. Built will be there.
Nice.
Wells Fargo, so they'll be there. And then Loyalty Summit. This is my first year going to Loyalty Summit. I was going to go to FinCon, but I can't go to FinCon this year because I'm going to be speaking at the second Chicago seminar. So
in October.
I'm speaking at. I was not selected this year to be at Travel More Con, but it sounds like some people are going for that, and it looks like it'll be a good event to go to. So if it's a first year travel content creator, not a bad thing to go to Travel More Ashley's event.
That's when we're going to be gone, right? Yeah. We'll be traveling. We're going to Cuba that week.
Okay. Well, good luck. Well, enjoy. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy. I wish you guys a lot of luck. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. Just keep it up.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything. You've been fantastic so far.
Yeah. You're welcome. I mean, I think everyone here needs that opportunity, and if I can help you guys do that, that'd be great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome. Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.